So Dr. Kristine Hoyt grew up in Cumberland, Maine, but has lived the last 32 years at Higgins. She attended Bowdoin College and went to veterinary medical school at the University of Wisconsin. In 1999, she opened Cats on Call Veteran Hospital here in town. And I think this needs an update.
I get that, you were about to say, I'm still there, I'm not there anymore. I retired 2 years ago.
Yeah, and retired 2 years ago. Her two passions are animals and travel. Although she is no longer practicing locally, she still donates her energies to veterinary work in Africa. She's spoken here previously on topics ranging from the Galapagos to leopard tracking in Botswana, and penguins and rhinos and all sorts of other things now. Now that she's retired, she'll have more time for collecting experiences for future armchair presentations. And they're always a delight. So I'm glad that you're so well traveled, because it's a chance for all of us to learn from you. So without further ado,
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for this kind introduction. Thank you, everyone, for coming on this cold day. So this is my last installment. And it's a little more disjointed than I think my other talks, because I had all these pictures I really wanted to show you and I stuffed them in somewhere. So my excuse if the flow isn't exactly perfect, but I promise there'll be some fun shots. So only about 2,000 years ago, which in the space of humanity is not very long ago, the Austronesians, sailors came to Madagascar from Borneo. So right here, this island right here is Borneo. And although this map does not show it well, Borneo is actually slightly larger than Madagascar. So Madagascar is the fourth largest island. Borneo is the third. And interestingly enough, I'm going to Borneo in May. So stay in tuned, because that's probably going to be my next talk. And this whole great area here is where all the Austronesians were moving around and trading. So it's quite fascinating how they made it all the way. Oh, and I should mention that this canoe, this outrigger canoe that I've got at the top here, I just took that picture on this trip, and that's exactly what they traveled all the way from Borneo. A boat just like that, which is pretty crazy if you ask me. Somewhere around the 9th century, the Bantu people made a short journey, just about 250 miles from Eastern Africa, went across the Mozambique Strait, and they came to Madagascar. They were primarily farmers, not traders. And they grew crops like yams, and they brought the cattle with them. And they also happened to be amazing workers with iron. And they brought those ironworking skills to help produce various tools that will enable them to clear land and work the land. So they were really important as an integration to the society. I have up here in the 8th century, and you're thinking, why did we go back? Well, they started coming in the 8th, and they came through the 10th. By the 10th is when they were settled. The Arabian traders came, and they had a profound influence on Madagascar, both specifically in their culture and in the language that still exists today. In fact, words associated with numbers, like the days of the week and the months and so on, they're all in Arabic. As part of the Malagasy language, which I found quite interesting. They also introduced the very important ombayasis. These are the actual healers or diviners, which play a huge role in Madagascar culture. They are the intermediaries between the spirit world and the living world. And they practice skinidi, which is what I talked about last time, where they take a little bit of the sap from the baobab tree, and they use that in the fire to bring spirits to give guidance to people about what they should be doing. They also are the great bearer of knowledge about herbal medicine, and they are the ones who basically saved the Madagascar people from COVID. So they were really important to come between the 8th and 10th centuries. The Intimoro people who live in the southeast part of Madagascar are their direct descendants. They're pretty pure Arab settlers, and we'll see in that area more mosques available for vision like this one here. And they also were the great scribes, and they documented the first geography of about the 12th century. So important people to come in. When we look at the genes of the people of Madagascar, in addition to those three peoples, we also find that there's a good proportion of Portuguese and French in the blood. And those people came in the 16th and the 17th century, and they also became part of the Malagasy tapestry. So very, very interesting. And so I have a series of just some pictures of interesting people, and you'll see they look very different. They all have very different looks. And if you told me, show me a picture of a Malagasy person, I would really be hard pressed to point out one person because they look so different. And yet they're people with deep souls. So that's one thing you can see in them. So unfortunately, we need to start when we talk about the people of Madagascar with poverty. It is profound. 81% of the population lives on about less than $2.15 a day. Went up from $2 one time the other day. I was looking at the statistics. The Global Finance magazine ranked Madagascar one of the very poorest countries in the world. Only 15% of the people have access to electricity. 35% have access to safe water, or even water at all. It's amazing what they have to go through to get water. Nearly half of the children are malnourished. We saw the great big bellies, no clothes. We saw real poverty. And although school is mandated, over 1 million children never get to go to school, and they are forced into child labor to keep their families alive. In addition to that, this country has a lot of problems with cyclones and drought, and that plays an important part in not being able to get ahead economically. Their GDP per capita is really low. So I think that all of this needs to be taken in mind when you're looking at where they're living and what they're doing. Probably the poorest of the poor are the rock workers. We saw them over and over again as we traveled through the roads. They were usually close to the highways, or we call it a highway. We'll get to that in a minute. But they literally all day long smashed rocks against rocks just to make them smaller, and created these small little crushed rocks that are used in road work and building. And that's what they did all day long. And even their children, you can see this little girl back here, she is just smashing rocks, and she's not going to school. And so when we were giving out things, and we'll talk about what we gave out, this is one of my favorite places to stop, because the people were shocked when we did that. And this is what we brought, because on the right, that is a children's ball. That's what they used. And this is what on the left we brought them. We brought about 35 soccer balls with us, and they were elated. It was such wonderful joy to bring happiness. And I think the parents were just as happy as the kids. They just were so happy to see their children full of joy. That was just wonderful moments over and over again. So with a lack of electricity, when you have to wash your clothes, this is how you do it. And over and over and over again, anytime we saw open water, we saw women washing clothes. Hard labor, really rough. But they did create some absolutely beautiful patterns, just gorgeous things along the riverbanks. I just think it's a piece of artistry. The primary source of any food is rice, and rice growing of rice, agricultural rice, is a critical part of the entire culture. And almost anywhere that you can grow rice, or they did grow rice. And many of these people are tenant farmers. Some people own a small pot of land, but for as long as it's light, they're out there working really hard, trying to work on the rice fields. Also, down at the bottom of people sort of barely peeking out of existence are the brick builders, or I should say the brick makers. So they build these giant kilns, and anywhere that there's mud all through the country, they would pack it into these kilns and bake the bricks, which brought us to some interesting sites. The woman on the left is probably about my age, and she's got a sensible amount on her back. But the lady on the right saw us there, and I think she was trying to show off. So you can see.
There you go.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And she went back, finally, she went back and forth, and a couple times she finally took a reasonable amount. But this woman won the prize for the most intelligent. She took a piece of her cloth, and wrapped the bricks in it, created a base, and then piled it on top. And they're just taking the rocks from the kiln up to the top of the road where the big trucks are being loaded. That's their job all day long. I can't imagine what their necks look like after even 5 years of doing this. It's amazing the kind of weight. These are not light rock bullet bricks at all.
Looks like they're barefoot as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, shoes are, we'll get to shoes in a minute. So the merchants of Madagascar are kind of on the next level after all these rock and brick and rice workers. And they're very proud. This gentleman on the right was the one who sold me this lovely piece of Lambwani, which is their beautiful traditional Madagascar fabric. In addition to what I have on, I brought a couple of examples up here as well. Wonderful, rich, beautiful fabric. They're very proud of it. Even in the cities, they'll wear like a business suit kind of thing, and then they'll put their cloth over it. So it's really fun to come up afterwards and take a look at that. It's really beautiful. Weaving is a huge part of their culture. I brought my basket here up in the front, and you can see the lovely lady who wove that standing there before she sold it to me. Very proud of it. And they weave doormats, rugs, doors for their homes. It's really an amazing art. So I participated in a little opportunity to try to learn to do some weaving. They did 10 strands at the same time, interwoven. You start by putting them under your feet. That kind of got things going. And you can see as you work along. And I have, let's see, on the left, they just took a piece of straw that we talked about last time and just split it down the middle. And then they take that and roll it up and flatten it. And then on the right is just weaving away. I got to do a little bit of it, but she got a little bit impatient with me because I was very slow. And there she is at the end of that's our lovely little basket that we made together. And it was a wonderful time and a great appreciation. She said she started learning how to weave when she was 3. So I have a lot of years to go. Another thing that they make, which is beautiful, is their paper. Absolutely gorgeous paper. And they put this plant material in it, and it's a piece of art. You don't want to really write on it, but that's it. Next, we talk about the wild Brocera silk. Now, this is fascinating. These Landibi moths and cocoons live only in the Tapia rainforest, one very specific part of Madagascar. And the silk is not able to be cultivated. These cocoons, you have to gather it from the cocoons in the wild. And when we're buying, silk, it's from the mulberry cocoon, and that can be, manufactured, so to speak, in a cultured situation. But you remember me talking last time about Pat, who was the amazing lemur woman. She actually worked with the local people and started a women's cooperative, so that the women could bring their beautiful hand-woven scarves to market. They naturally dye them, no tour alike. And I also brought my scarf that I bought up here at the front if you want to touch it or feel it. It's not soft like the kind of silk that you might be used to with mulberry silkworm, but it's very tough. It's not going to easily rip. It's very functional, and I think just as beautiful. So, and that's the moth on the left-hand side, which I just happened to catch a picture, but I didn't know what it was until later I identified. I said, oh, that would be helpful for my talk. Fresh ground coffee. This is how you get it in the morning. Now this gentleman is grinding away, and he was very happy. Moving along, we have the food merchants. The gentleman on the left, those are little piles of zebu meat. which is like a cow. We'll talk about that in a bit, but he's just walking around out 100-degree weather. Anybody wants to buy any meat. I think I'm more inclined to get the bread in the middle. And the gentleman on the right, he's got a stationary location. He is working with sugar cane. So he crushes a sugar cane for people. Beautiful displays of fruit. Just wonderful. Mangoes were in season when I was there, limes. And people will just walk along the road with their wares, and we would stop the bus, and we had some fresh lychees, which are just succulent. And this woman was very happy because we definitely paid her more than $2.15 for this lychee. We were always overpaying for things, just because, you know, we could afford it and it would make their day. Beautiful peppers and all the different spices that they sell. Here on the left, we've got yams all the way from the Bantu people, other vegetables on the right. And all along the road, you'll see these little pieces of cloth set up and people putting out whatever they manage to grow. Kids will set up a little stand and sell whatever goodies they can find. And this is peanut brittle, which was very popular. And again, they have the pot right there. You can watch them make it right in front of you. Moving up, kind of people who make a little bit more money as we go along here, are the wonderful woodworkers. And you can see we've got a backgammon board being made here. Many the workers do simple things like these bowls and spoons. But then there's this wonderful gentleman that we met that did this beautiful inlay work. And I brought one of his boxes up here. It's a puzzle box, so if you can figure out how to open it up, there's a little surprise to look at on the inside of that. But there's some beautiful, beautiful artistry that's available in this country. You know, there's not a lot of stuff from China here, just put it that way. When you buy something there, you really get a cherished, one-of-a-kind possession. And then families, and this is just one family, will be on the side of the road with their little carved figurines, and you know, hoping that somebody will stop and buy it. So these people really rely on tourists, very important to their economy. Also available up here, I have got one of my wonderful carved wooden figurines. But on the left is the most common form of wood that we see sold, which is basically sticks from the forest and charcoal. And that's what you see everywhere. And I just put this in here because I found it amusing. And you know, the old saying that the cobbler's kids have no shoes. Well, here's the gentleman selling his multitude of shoes, and look what he's wearing on his feet. And speaking of shoes, one of my traveling companions, her shoes blew out on the sides, and you know, they're not going to be able to find a nice, decent pair of shoes to buy. You look at that other picture. But we wandered around the streets and we found a shoe repair guy, and he expertly took the thing all apart, put it all back together, probably better than what it was from the beginning. And he was so proud to do it because, you know, here we were, the foreigners, and they were working with him. And so he said this was going to help his business 100%. Everybody would come to him now because we had come to him. So that felt really good. And so how do things move around? Well, mostly on the top of people's heads, if you're a woman. And everywhere we went, we saw hay and baskets, and even the little ones, you can see they start out really early, 3 or 4 years of age, carrying things on top of their heads. Although the men are more common to wear these basket poles on their shoulders, the women always are seen with carrying things to market. If you're rich, you have a bicycle, and you take advantage of that. You put as much on it as you possibly can. You can see we've got 4 bales of hay, and we've got 4 mattresses on that bicycle in the back. Or you can get creative and figure out how to balance your shoulder baskets on your bicycle. It was always fascinating to go through a town on market day and see how people were moving things. It was just fascinating. They have carts. More traditionally, the ones on the right, which are wooden wheels, are what we saw. But the people on the left were, you know, really, really living it high. They had a real rubber tire on the cart. You notice what's pulling the cart, though, right? This woman is buying a mattress, and she's using the rickshaw to bring it back. And there's the driver. He's securing her mattress on top, and she and her two kids are going to go home with her new mattress. So that's a simple. And then we get the fancy one. You know, and go out on the town as the rickshaw, a little more fancy. A typical town. Look at that. And talk about the traffic. Amazing. Mostly by bicycle. But also this is one of my favorite pictures because we've got the modern day truck. We've got people on the bicycle. We've got the zebu pulling a cart. And in the back, we've got a gentleman pulling a cart. So it's kind of like all the different possibilities here in one shot. It's kind of fun. And then this is another one of my favorite shots, just an oil truck going by, a gentleman bringing the hay to market. And I love the little dog. It was, and he was underneath the cart in the shade. Smart dog. Taking your pig to market. Most commonly, you put a harness on it and off you go. But if you look in the basket on the gentleman on the right, that's a pig in that little basket. His little pig to market. And then this one wins the prize. I counted them, there are 10 chickens alive and attached to the back of that box. Going to market. Yeah, you know, you take what you got and you bring what you can. Speaking of how and why, the road on the left is one of the fairly good roads. And the one on the right was a brand new road that opened up like the week before we got there. It was a very small section, but it was magnificent. And we never saw anything like it on the whole rest of the over 2,000 miles that we traveled. Mostly it was like on the left. And so sometimes, you know, trucks just aren't going to make that or have a hard time. So the zebu are often what you want to turn to. And speaking of zebu, we have to spend some time because since the Bantu people brought cattle to the island, they have been an integral part of the people and culture there. They're called locally the Ombi. It's the cornerstone of Madagascar culture and economy. These magnificent creatures are essential for both labor and agricultural, like working in the rice fields. They're humpback. You see it on the back there, this little section here. It's fascinating. It's kind of like a camel's hump. It can hold water and fat so that they can survive terrible droughts. They're very, very hardy cattle, probably the hardiest cattle I've ever seen. And they are just about as hardy as the people that live with them. They're also a means of displaying social status. They're used in traditional ceremonies. If you're getting married or there's a funeral, you slaughter a zebu. They're used for sacrifices or offerings to the god, which we'll get to later. They're just critical. And when I asked this little boy if I could take his picture, he ran over to stand next to his zebu because he was very proud that his family owned this beautiful zebu. And it was very handsome. They'll tie them up right through the nose. You can see that it goes right through the nose and it ties off to a tree. They don't have any fencing. Many of the zebu just run free, but if you want to retain them, you do it that way. And they have these incredible zebu markets where people come and sell their zebu or trade them. And this is one of the markets that we visited. It kind of broke my heart. I mean, just look at the ribs on some of these animals, but they're alive. Working in the fields. And I have this little slide of how hard these animals and these people work. They like water. Those yellow buckets are for water. This gentleman was very proud of his zebu. And that big blue thing has got water in it as well. And I just love this shot, just showing this young boy walking his zebu down to the river to get us some water. And it just kind of shows how close these two species are together in this country. Oh, and then there's housing. We went through this whole section and the houses were very tall and thin. And I was like, what's going on here? Found out that, oh yeah, on the first floor is where the animals live. And up above is where the people live. So that's one form of housing. If you get into the jungle, this is a typical Malagasy house with their little beds. I talked a little bit about this last time. Healthcare, if you can imagine, in Madagascar, is not very easily found. And it's most likely the traditional healer that is available to you if you're a person living in the jungle. Although they do have doctors that will come, but they often work with the traditional healer. So this is a nice picture that Nat sent me of the traditional healer and a medical doctor working jointly on this young man to try to help him. There is some technology in this country, very limited. It's in the capital city, which, by the way, is abbreviated as Tana. Everybody just calls it Tana. They are working specifically on finding plant remedies. Drug companies are going to pay a lot of money if you can find a remedy for, another form of cancer. So that's where most of that is structured. Also, Pat Wright, with her work at her facility that we talked about on the first talk, she also has some very sophisticated equipment and some well-educated people that can work with that. But it's very, very limited and only in the big city. I loved the music and the dance. It just warms your heart. And it's quite varied depending on what part of the country you're in. I'm gonna play this one. They're singing in a cave for acoustics. You hear them say zebu? About their zebu, maybe in the songs. And then that was in the very arid part of the country. This is a group that live in the northeast, in the rainforest. Very percussion oriented. Everything starts out with the percussion first. Then voice comes in. They have fun. And then there's the dance. Some of the dance is very regimented and very organized. And they start very young. People I travel with, great time dancing with the kids. And then there's a very strange person who's trying to fit in. Notice the board, put that with the touch of the feet. And work the verb. So I think I've been alluding to this. When we talk about religion in this country, they have an amazing unified religious idea that, we think about this huge country with all these different people coming in. It's kind of amazing that there's kind of one religion. So despite all these various tribes, the people all share one language, and they have the belief in the power of the dead. They really feel that their dead ancestors are really important to their lives. Some people call it a cult of the worship of the dead, which sounds kind of depressing, but actually it's a very joyful society. They think that all these dead people are looking out for them and watching out for them. And in fact, over and over and over again, so common because I forgot to take a picture of it, and it's the closest I could get. On the right is where the people who are living live, and that huge house on the left, that's where their ancestors live. And they spend most of their time fixing up the ancestors' house to make it picture perfect and beautiful. It's often 4 to 5 times what they're living in. But, they got a lot of people to stuff. They believe that if their ancestors are remembered by their descendants, so those of us living, then they will thrive in the spirit world, that they will do really, really well. And they also believe that their Razana will look out for them and care for them And when they have done something to anger them, that's when calamity happens. So I don't know what that setup thing is, I'm gonna make that go away. But they do believe in one God. And then if you're in the country, it seems like just people in the country, not people in the cities, they believed in these Odis, which were spirit gods of the natural world. So the Odis would usually live within a tree, very often the baobab, so that's a baobab on the right. And you can tell it's an Odi because they dress it. You would go to the Odi and ask the Odi for a blessing, or if you wanted to pass your exams at school, you might go and ask for a blessing. They believe that crocodiles are frequently Odis, so you want to mess with that Odi. But on the left, we over and over again saw these zebu sacrifices that were brought to trees or places that they thought the Odi was living to ask for whatever it is they wanted to ask of their ancestors. Also really interesting and spread out through the whole country is a fadi. Some people think it means taboo, but if you really translate it, it means superstition. But a superstition that everybody listens to. And I even did. I found this as I was walking through the woods. And I looked it up on my little phone and it says, don't go in this forest, it's forbidden. So I didn't go down that path. I didn't know what was down there, but I figured it probably had a good reason to not be. And here's 3 stories. Can we make that go away, Tom? That thing in the top?
Do it with the,
I'm sorry?
you have to do it with your mouse
With this?
X and click against it. So,
There we go. Okay, great. So these are 3 of my favorite bodies. And they have good reason to exist. And the first one is that you do not kill a goose ever. It's forbidden to eat a goose, no matter how starving you are. And that's because the story goes that a king of Madagascar once was invaded by some thieves in the middle of the night, and the geese attacked the thieves. And if anyone's ever met up with a goose that's an attack or a protection goose, you know that they are not pleasant to deal with. And the ruckus of the geese woke the king and his guards, and the thieves were captured. So no killing geese. Another fascinating story comes from the time of the invasion of the Portuguese and the French. And these pirates would come to villages from the ocean and they would pillage. And so when they saw pirate ships coming, they would try to escape into the woods to hide. Well, one time, this woman with 2 young children was having difficulty trying to keep up, and she didn't quite get out of town in town. She hid behind a fence, or rather a stump. And there was a drango bird up above her, which happens to be a mimic bird. So her child cried, and the soldiers came rushing over thinking they had found something. And the bird cried back, just like the baby. And so the soldiers looked up and saw they thought they were being duped by a bird, and left the woman and her children to safety. So no messing with that bird because it can save your life. And the last one is just kind of a funny cooking story. Never had this happen, but a gentleman, as a last resort, because he was starving to death, decided to cook a tortoise. He threw it in the pot, and the tortoise threw out his arms and broke his pot, which, you know, to break your pot is like really bad. So they don't eat tortoise, but they break your pot. But 3 fatties. Now it doesn't want to proceed. Okay, we'll do it this way. Yeah. So when we're talking about religion, we have to talk about burial. And this is one of the shrines or the tombs that we came across. And at the top of this, it actually says, repentance is forgiveness. Your ancestors will forgive you if you say, I'm sorry. And interestingly enough, they don't want any people breaking into these tombs. There's presumably some things of value in there. And so up on the top, along the outside, you can see little brownish things hanging out. Those are actually bees' nests that they put there so that nobody will come in, because it's not nice to mess with the bees. They do a pretty good job on you. And so that's interesting natural protection, geese and bees. Some of the really older ones, there's all beautiful drawings on these, from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. More than one person would be buried in this area and then just covered with rocks. Fascinating. On the left is a modern shrine from the left-hand side. You can read the dates are like the 1800s. But on the right, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, you can't even tell that who or what name was there before. It was like, this is, I found, the most interesting part of their religious culture. And that's the Babadina. I didn't get to see one of these because it's so rare, but every 7 to 10 years, you open up the tomb of your ancestors and you bring them out. You wrap brand new, beautiful, highest quality silk around the body. You sit there and talk to them and tell them everything that's been going on. You place flowers on them. A picture gets put on top of them. They get raised up in the air and everybody starts dancing. 1 or 2 zebu are killed. It is an incredible feast and celebration. My guide happened to stumble upon a village that was doing this, and you do it to everybody, like all your ancestors. So everybody's bringing out their dead and everybody's doing this. And it's quite a big to do. And then exactly at an appointed hour, that the embassy said is time, the people are then put back with their brand new silk shrouds in their tombs, which have been cleaned completely. And there's a very emotional goodbye, and it's sealed back up for another 7 to 10 years. Very fascinating. I had to put a lemur in, so I on a shot with a lemur. This is just a kind of a museum rendition of typical village housing, and you can see the one on the right is for the people who are living, and the one on the left is for their ancestors. So we need to have some discussion about Christianity. Make that thing go away here. I'll make this go up. There we go. It's thought that about 58% of the population is Christian. Although when I talk to some of these Christian people, they still had a house for their ancestors, like next to their house. And I think they join Christianity when it's very convenient, because the Christian churches are bringing to them food and education, which are very, very hard to get. If somebody's going to feed you, you're going to probably pray to their God as well as their God, your God. We did get to go visit one church, also filled with wonderful music, and just kind of panning to see what that looks like. Very large building. So I found that quite fascinating. And even though the Portuguese and the French brought Catholicism, it's actually the Protestants that are more prominently found in Madagascar than the Catholics, which I thought was kind of an interesting find. Then we get to food, the best part, right, everybody? So this is one of our feasts. The table is laid out with banana leaves. A big pile of rice is put on the table. And if you want to be, I just thought it was fun to make us do this, but it took little banana leaves and we had to make these like little spoons to eat the stuff with. Mostly just use your hands. So whenever we would go out to eat, we would get this enormous pile of rice and this little teeny something that we worked. And so the Malagasies consume about 1 to 2 pounds of cooked rice a day. That's cooked. Huge amount of rice. Many of them are starving, lots of carbohydrates. And this is a woman working in the rice fields. Along with that, you get the layoka, which is the little bowls that have something special. Everywhere we went, we got carrots and green beans. That's the only things I ever saw were carrots and green beans. I'm sure they must have had something else, but I never saw it. They have cassava, which is another very carbohydrate-rich food. And then they have bambara, ground nuts, which provide some protein. And then there are also Madagascar beans. So they do get some proteins this way. And if you live in a very drought-given area where rice cannot grow, you're going to eat the sorghum. And this woman is, adding water and grinding, and we were there for about 2 hours in the village, and she was doing it the whole time, so I think I don't know how much energy you get and how much energy you expend for this, but quite an interesting alternative to rice. If you live by the ocean, you have a much richer life, I think, at least gastronomically, because you could get fish. This is a wonderful smoking house that was right by one of the villages where we stayed. And then, usually only on special occasions, you would slaughter a zebu, and that's zebu meat on the right. It has kind of a gamey taste, and it's usually rather chewy. So it's not one of my favorite things to eat. Soup is very commonly made. And I just thought the picture on the right was very amusing. If you read carefully the translation that they provided for us for this particular food. For those of you who can't read it, it says "come," that's the English translation on that particular cheese. One of the most beautiful things we did was going to a school. And I love what was written in Malagasy on the wall of one of the schoolhouses. What you learn, you know you like, and what you like, you protect. I love very much the Masawala. That is the name of the area, the village, the area that we went to. And this is a big tourist spot. It was my favorite place to visit. It was just like heaven on earth. It was beautiful there. And my dollars that I paid to go there were used to pay for the schooling for the children. And that made it feel doubly good. So this little building here, that's the school. But mostly the kids learned outside because it was way too hot to go inside. I was told they pretty much only use the buildings during the rainy season when it rains all day long. The schooling consists of a 3-tier system. We've got the 5 years of the primary grades from grade 6 to 11, 4 years of a junior secondary school, and then 3 years of a senior school. And while primary education is free, quote unquote, the system faces huge dropout because people can't afford to have their children away all day. They've got to be working. And the schools are not funded by the state at all. So it's only the community who can pay for the school. And so in coming, we brought balls. You can see how badly off, even in this very rich school, their balls are. Paper and markers, which were like, they don't have things to write with. 94% of the children in Madagascar are illiterate. They go to school and they learn rote memorization, but they can't read or write. So we took a soccer ball. This lovely, lovely woman did this amazing artistry of a lemur. We visited the school on World Lemur Day. And so one of our lead guide, he dressed up like a lemur, which the kids thought were fun. And their teacher taught the kids a lemur song to sing to us. So this is the lemur climbing up the tree. And you can see the lemur is dancing around the kids, having a good time. It was a fun day, and you can see how much fun the kids had. And that's one of their pieces of paper we brought them, and markers, and it just felt wonderful to bring such joy. The last section I want to talk about, I'll just show you pictures of mother and child. And this might not be what you think of when you think of mother and child, but it's an interesting story. Another village we visited was told a few hours before that we were coming would be okay. And the leader of the village is the gentleman on the right who wore his best clothes for us. It was a raincoat and hat, even though it was 110 degrees that day, but he wanted to be nicely dressed to present himself. And the woman, he, by the way, is around 84 years of age, he said. The woman on the left here is his mother. And we asked her how old she was, and the reply was, Well, there's nobody here that remembers, and I'm too old to remember. So, she said, I'm at least 100 plus.
Wow.
So mother and child by the river. Mother and child resting after doing laundry. Couple of children looking at the mangoes. Kids hanging out on a cart. More kids. This is the child of one of the brick workers. They just put the kid up on the hill. I can keep track of it somewhere. Just sitting there by himself. More kids from the village. And this little boy, we brought clothing with us and we gave him a shirt and a soccer ball, and he promptly put the soccer ball inside the shirt, tied it up, and he was ready. He was look at that smile on his face. We didn't ask him to smile. He was just overjoyed. He got new clothes and a ball. And you can see, I wanted to end with just how happy, if I can get this to work here, just a minute. There we go. Come on. Hello, hello. Hello. Having fun.
Yeah.
Having fun. And so questions. This is just a funny shot, but I think this dog, you can't even see the rest of his body, just with his head sticking out, but that's it. Happy to answer any questions I possibly can. You guys can come up to the front and take a look at the map of where we went. One of the books I recommend if you want to read up on it, and some things to show and tell up there. Any questions?
What's the population?
Oh, I think it's 32 million, something like that. I think it's about that. Yeah. 80% of the population is under the age of 25.
Okay.
I didn't get into it, but this is an interesting little anecdote. I almost didn't get to go on my trip because on the way there, they had a coup, which kind of messed up with getting there. And I got there a very circuitous route, but I got there. The coup was kind of interesting. It kind of tells you something about the Malagasy people. There was the president and some of the children, the kids in college who had no hope for anything to do when they came out of college, and there was no jobs, period, were demonstrating it. And one of them got killed by one of the guards at the palace. And the head of the army was not happy with this. And he sent a note to the president and said, we don't kill our own people. Those days are gone. You need to leave now. And so he said, okay. And he got on a plane, specifically the plane we were supposed to be in. And he took off. Caused a little problem with getting around because our plane was gone. But that was the peaceful coup. It was as a result of the death, unfortunately, of a student, but it was very peaceful while we were there. And we saw no problems or difficulties, but they were a little worried. But the president saw it writing on the wall and said, no, it's not okay. We do that.
Wow.
80% population under the age of 25, and most of them, I mean, very normal to have 10. And you will have, often the parents will choose one child out of the 10 that they'll send to school. That's their greatest hope, that this child can do something to better their situation. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Did you find anyone that spoke French?
Oh, yes.
One's the French colony.
Yes, it is. And in French is the second language there.
Right.
Although we were, in the towns, yes, definitely. And I spoke French to them. I really don't have much Malagasy. Learned yes, please, thank you, and bathroom. But mostly spoke French. But when you're out in the villages, a lot less of that, because only the educated people learned French. Yeah. So very limited people knowledge of French. Anybody else?
Were there many other tourists that you came across in your travels?
Very, very, very few. We saw a Swiss group, we saw a Chinese group, and we saw a German group. But you think about the fact we were there for a month, There was a group from National Geographic. And then one from each of those countries, and that was it. I mean, these people desperately need tourists. That did not help that there was a coup and no planes were coming. So I think that might have had a little stronger, but they said even then, you know, it was not crowded anywhere at all, except in the cities. Yes.
So I missed the beginning. When did you go? What time of the year? And is the weather the same year round? I mean.
Definitely
you
not the
said-
same year round.
Okay,
I went in October, November, so good part of October into the beginning of November. Somewhere around the end of December, beginning of January is when the rainy season really begins, and it rains a lot and hard for months. Nobody comes, pretty much everything shuts down in terms of tourism during that time because it's pretty miserable. Having been in the rainforest one day when it was pouring, it really rains there. When it rains, it comes down in buckets. So, I think they chose that as potentially the nicest time to go. Although I would have loved to have seen the orchids. We talked about that last time, that the orchids come out, and that's the joy that you get to see, when the rainy season happens. Yes,
The kids that are, the few that are able to go on for education,
yeah,
and then they complete it,
yes.
then what do they do? Because you said they
Exactly.
job.
That's
Do they
the problem.
stay or do they go?
They can't leave. They have no money to leave the country. So, you know, this is, you know, that's a pretty tough life. It's really, really tough. You know, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing, I think, that goes on there. You know, we were warned to be very careful of our possessions. They like to steal cell phones a lot, to get some money for those. Yeah, it's a really hard economy.
Did you feel safe?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt completely safe, absolutely safe. Yeah, there's never any interest in any harm to anyone. They're very, very peaceful people. They were always ecstatic to see us. Because we brought money. They knew that, you know, we were gonna bring money to the location. Yeah, and whenever we went somewhere, we tried to eat out at the local restaurant if we could to try to help the economy. You know, we did our part. We tried to shop as much as we could, but it was not easy to find a place to buy things other than food and wood products. You know, but even that one wood shop, the place where I got the inlay, where was the only working place we saw. Yeah, so they're really not set up for tourists very much either. So if they get to start getting the tourists, they're gonna have to step up their game a little bit in terms of that, but there's still some beautiful artistry going on, for sure.
but that's it.
Yes,
So with no healthcare available, what did you have to do to keep yourself healthy?
well, I had Dr. Nat with me, who's the ethnobotanist that I talked about last time. So I felt quite assured that he would go find the right plant for me if I had a problem. In fact, a couple people had some digestive issues or some respiratory issues, and he got them what they needed, you know. You know, yeah, fortunately, nobody got really seriously ill, and we did not have to fly somebody to the capital, because that's really what we'd have to do.
So there was bottled water.
There was bottled water to purchase. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And we were very careful about what we ate. Everything had to be cooked. Absolutely everything had to be cooked. And water had to be boiled if it was, you know, in a soup or whatever. Yeah, yeah. I think almost everybody had a little digestive difficulty at one point or another though during the trip. I mean, it's very different flora there. And microflora, shall we say. Yeah. Okay, shall we end that at this point? Unless anybody else has any other questions, and I'll go up to the front here for those people who are here. Oh yeah, please do, see them. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you.